Well, good evening, everybody, and hopefully I'll be able to share my screen with you later on so that you can actually see in front of you the layout of what I'm going to talk about today. But the main thing, I think, my passion is how important what we're doing now is. And that's a wonderful thing is that we all have organs, we all have meridians, we all need to look after ourselves in a very, very intrinsic way, and not just, on a physical level, but on an energetic level, on an emotional level, on a mental level, and also a spiritual level, which is that sort of higher part of yourself, which is able to look down on the mind and see, what's going on and be able to direct the mind. And I think one of the things that I learned very early on was, I remember a master saying to me, the trouble is in the West, you think too much. And it is that level of being able to turn off the mind or use it as a tool, which you can then direct energy around the body. And one of the things that I was most passionate about when I was doing Qigong was understanding the body clock. Now, before it seemed a more rarefied practice, not many people really understood it. But in the late 20th century, in the late 1900s, doctors really began to see the importance of the body clock and the way one meridian flows into another. So if you like, you have a peak of energy and a trough of energy. And when I first started in Shiatsu, I was very much aware of the importance of Taoism. And that's really what my passion is now, from a yogic principle to a Qigong principle, is living with harmony with the seasons. And whatever is going on in the environment, we are breathing that environment, and that environment relates to us. And so we are actually adjusting to the environment through the changes of the seasons. And that gives people a fantastic tool to be able to skillfully work with energy so that you're able to have different, if you like, energies at certain times of year, and the organs relate to those times of year. Say, for example, the kidneys love to rest, they love winter, they love stillness, whereas the liver loves to get moving, it loves to plan, it loves to organize. The heart loves to be sociable, go out and, pump in the full summer. Late summer, we need to come back to ourselves, and it's the time of the stomach and the spleen. We need to be able to digest information. And then we go into autumn and winter, which is the time of the lungs and the large intestine, where we need to pare down, reevaluate, get rid of what we don't want, and store the right energy to go into the winter season. And then we go back to the night. And it's the character and the nature of these organs that also relates to the body clock. So for those of you who don't know so much about Chinese medicine, we have this complementary system of yin and yang. So yang being the more active phase and the yin being the more passive phase. And it's a constant adjustment of those energies all the way through the year. So for example, in summer, you've got a lot of yang and not much yin. And then in winter, you've got a lot more yin and not a lot of yang. So our bodies are continually making these adjustments, not only to the seasons, but to the time of day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully share my screen with you so that we can have a look at some of the things that I'm talking about. And I think it will help when you actually see the slides, and then we'll start by looking at the body clock itself. So what we're going to do, I'm going to start with, first of all, hopefully, if I can adjust the play. So yeah, so here we are, and you're looking at the overview of the body clock. And for those of you who have a look at that Tai Chi symbol, you'll see that within that yin and yang, there is a black dot and a white dot. So the yang, the active phase, has within it that stillness. So the more active we are, not a lot is happening inside, and yet the more passive, they have that activity, the white dot, which means that we're more active and there's a lot going on energetically while we're resting. And just to sort of bring what we're doing into the present day is the importance of, for example, the immune system, the digestive system, the eliminatory systems, all the systems that really work to heal the body go on in that, if you like, that yin phase. So on one side, you've got the sympathetic, the yang, and on the other side, you've got the parasympathetic, the yin. And it's when you're doing the Qigong and the Tai Chi, you're not operating from sympathetic, where your energy is in the muscles. You're operating from parasympathetic, where the energy leaves the muscles and goes round to flow through the meridians. So even if we look at, for example, excessive training and not enough rest can actually compromise the immune system and the digestive systems. So the idea when we're doing Qigong is to bring the energy out of the muscles so that the energy can flow throughout the body via the connective tissue. So what we're going to look at, first of all, is a very simple picture of the three treasures. And when we talk about Jing, we talk about the hormonal changes that are going on through our life. And that is really, really important, because Jing is how we age. And therefore, if we're doing things that nourish the Jing, we age well. And if we're doing things that don't nourish the Jing and that compromise the Jing, we don't age so well. So let me give you an example. You'd have two people, say Marjorie and Joan, and Marjorie and Joan both live till they're 80. But Marjorie lives a good life. She's nourished her Jing. She spends time doing Qigong, being out in nature, living with the seasons, being able to meditate, still the mind. And then Jean, if you like, is fine till she's about 60, and then lives till she's 80, but with underlying health conditions. So when we're actually teaching Qigong and Tai Chi, we're nourishing the Jing, which enables our hormonal balance to be right throughout our life. So we're not compromising this Jing. Okay, so the second thing we look at is Qi. So Qi is our current bank account, how we manage our day-to-day bank account. Our Jing is our deposit account, which we eke out through our life, but Qi is something we're actively doing all day. So we're putting in life force, we're taking it out. And if we keep our current bank account healthy, we don't draw on the deposit account. So therefore, we're nourishing our Jing through the practice, but we're also managing our day-to-day energy through what we're eating, what we're doing, what we're thinking, the environment we're in, the work we're doing, and so on. So we're putting in and taking out. And the last thing, which I think is the most important, is this idea of Shen, or consciousness. And it's the idea that we're looking at that spiritual aspect of the mind. So if you like, we're going beyond the level of the thinking mind, and we're nourishing our pure consciousness. And this is something that we do when we do the Tai Chi and the Qigong. For example, in a class today, someone said, gosh, is that the end? The time went so quickly. And that is because we go to the level in our practice of no thinking mind, and then we're actually operating from this, if you like, this meditative state where we're able to direct the mind, because we're at a level that's beyond the mind, and we're able to bring the mind into the now using breath and using the direction, or yi, as the intention. And I think that's the most important thing. So when we're looking at the body clock, if you can think of your organs having a character of the season, it's also the time of day when that that organ is at its peak of energy, and the opposite time of day is when it's at its trough. So I think when we're working with energy and we're working with Qigong and Tai actually a lot of us as practitioners look on it as a way of, just as we would cleaning our teeth, on a daily basis, we're cleaning the body, the energy of the body, like and cleaning the mind. And this should be something we do on a daily basis to keep us fit and healthy so that our Jing is preserved. Now, if you look at the body clock, you'll see how the body clock works is the clock is cell autonomous. So each of your cells has a little molecular clock in it. And the clocks of different organs have a synchronized output at certain times of day. And this is hugely important because what it means is that we can actually adjust that clock, and that clock is continually being compromised. So say, for example, medication. You take a medication at a certain time of day when the organ is, say, supposed to be resting, but you're stimulating the organ at the wrong time of day. And they've actually done a study within medicine now where they're starting to look at the time of day when people take certain medicines in relationship to certain organs. Another example is, if you look at the body clock, you'll see that the heart, the top, is most active in the middle of the day. Now, what they're finding now is that the recovery rate from heart operations happens just after midday. So it's no good doing the operation. The recovery won't be so good if the heart is trying to gather energy. But if you do it just after the peak of energy, then you get the best healing results. So what I want you to imagine is that organs have characters. They have a frequency. They have a little clock within each of their cells that makes them resonate at a certain time of day at its peak. No heart stops. So it's building up, it's going to the peak, the wave goes through, and then it's going down the opposite side. So what that means is, for example, if you have problems with the large intestine in the mornings between 5 and 7, you're then having to look at the organ before it that may not be passing the energy on. So there may be compromised flow in the meridian of the lungs. So by breathing well, you then work with the large intestine. Now, the large intestine gives its energy to the stomach, which is why if you have weak stomach energy, for example, and you don't eat in the mornings, you may be compromising your energy. And then if you eat, say, late at night, the stomach's supposed to be resting. Even more importantly, the spleen, which is the next organ between 9 and 11 in the morning, is when our immune system needs to be at its peak, because we're taking in food and we have more immune cells in our gut than anywhere else. So naturally, the spleen needs to be very active during the day. During the night, it's recharging itself. But look at the opposite side of the clock and you'll see the triple burner. Now, the triple burner is one of those, if you like, organs that's related to the 3 burners in the body, the lower burner, the middle burner, the upper burner. And what that does is that the triple burner has a huge influence on marshalling all of the organs via the connective tissue, identifying what's going on, and then producing immune reactions. So if the spleen is lazy and not working, the triple heater will be overactive, and also our body temperature for a good night's sleep will be compromised. So it's really, really important we understand the clock. The next organ, if you like, is the heart. So the heart is most active, pumping during the middle of the day, but at night, the heart needs to rest. And we know that the heart, mind are linked together. So we're taking in blue light at different times of the day, and that is going in through our eyes, hitting the suprachiasmic node at the back of the brain, and then that in its turn is resetting the internal clocks in the body. So you can see that at night the heart needs to rest, but if we're then plugged into iPads and mobile phones with a blue light on it, we're telling the body it's time to be awake. So watching that, especially young people, and this clock, because we're 24-hour living, it goes on all the time. We need to really understand using Qigong moves and opening up meridian pathways to the organs concerned to reset the clock on a daily basis. And I'm finding that particularly, for example, older people, doing the body clock every day resets their whole meridian. It improves their digestion, it improves their sleep pattern, it improves their brain, the kidney and the bladder going kicking in the afternoons, the idea of balancing your autonomic nervous system, so coming out of fight and flight, going into rest and digest during the time of day. And one of the most important thing is that, say, for example, you look at the pericardium is seen as our emotional heart. And we know when we do Qigong, a lot of the movements not only open up the meridian flows to the organs, but also massage the organs as we're doing the Qigong moves. So the pericardium is the one that we need to be in the right emotional state in the evenings, to then have the right body temperature to get the right night's sleep. So our emotional state in the evenings, balancing the pericardium, doing things, instead of watching violent television, we're doing things that balance the pericardium, nourish the pericardium, so that we're naturally getting into that good sleep. We know that the gallbladder actually sends us to sleep, and the liver helps us to sleep. And while we're asleep, the liver is detoxifying the body. So we've got all those things going on, and often people find they get disrupted sleep, that it's often the fault of the liver, which is actually a spring energy that needs to get things done and organize the body. And we find that we're waking up between sort of 1 and 3 in the morning and not being able to get back to sleep, simply because we've overloaded the liver. And of course, the liver governs anger. So if we go to bed angry, we're again compromising the energy of the liver. So as you see, the body clock's hugely important, and never before has that tool been more important, because of traveling, because of, moving fly zones and that kind of thing. We're 24-hour living. We've got a lot of stressful energy going out into computers. And so when we use the Qigong, not only are we turning off the sympathetic system and opening up the parasympathetic, but also we're able to balance that body clock by looking at times of day where we can give certain people certain Qigong moves to balance the organs that they may feel are being compromised. So I'm really going to sum it up there as a tool. And what I think is really important, us as practitioners, is to realize how important if you like, the information and the knowledge comes that was thousands of years old by studying in Qigong, totally still, the flow of the meridians around the body. So, the catch-22 question is, how many meridians have you got in your body? Well, we've actually only got one, because each meridian is flowing into the next. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up to questions, and I will unshare my screen.
Thank you, Sue. And yeah, I definitely like to personally thank Sue for her informative talk today. As they say, there's a time for all things, and the insights from on the body clock I've had today will certainly influence my personal Qigong practice moving forward. And I especially enjoyed your analogy of Jing and Qi with banking. I mean, it helps us to understand these ethereal concepts. So, as Sue mentioned, we've got a question time, and thank you to those that have submitted questions. So I'll start with the first one. So question number one, I have a friend who is an holistic therapist and regularly talks to me about chakras, and how do these relate to Qigong?
Well, that's a really, really interesting point, because one of the things that I'm very passionate about is teaching energetic anatomy. And if you can go back to that original image that I had on the screen, you had the yin and the yang, but within the yin and the yang, you had 3 big circles and 4 little circles. And they were seen as being the link between, if you like, the energy within the body, and the 3 dantians, and the 3 gateways, or if you like, triple burners. But you also had the other 4, which are related to the hormone producing glands in the body. And I always remember reading that Lao Tzu, he would practice the microcosmic orbit, and he said by practicing that he achieved eternal life, which wasn't that, if you like, he was going on to live forever, but he was able to get into this universal energy that comes down and uses the body as a vessel and then disappears. And these hormone producing glands, or they relate to the chakras, because I don't think it's by chance that the chakras are over the hormone producing glands that we talk about when we talk about the Qigong practice and the microcosmic orbit.
Thank you very much, Sue. We have another question. This one is, my wife has fibromyalgia and nothing has worked. Have you experience of the clock in this malady?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because one of the things that I have several people I teach in my class this morning with fibromyalgia. Some are in chairs, and one of the most important things is that with fibromyalgia, the pain is moving all the time, and it's very much linked to connective tissue. And also, by doing the body clock regularly, you're rebalancing the flow of energy along through all the meridians, and also being able to, if you like, turn off the hypothalamus that's linked to the pain and refocus on moving the chi through the meridians. And a lot I've found with fibromyalgia also can be emotional blocks within the meridians. So as you're doing the body clock, you're also unblocking the emotions of that particular organ. So it's a really, really important thing to work with the fascia and get the energy moving in the body. Absolutely.
Wonderful, thank you. And please, anybody else with questions, please pop them in the chat. I've got, well, 2 more from Karen. So how do you regulate your body clock when you get up at 5:30 and work until 4 p.m? I also wake every morning at 4. Is this the liver? I'm not angry though. She says, thank you, this is definitely a way forward for me. And she also has a little supplementary question saying, what are you sitting on? So 2 questions there.
I'm sitting on a lovely small block, which, or a bolster rather, which is just giving me the lift I need. But to go back to that, it's a very, very good question. And one of the things, for example, that I would like to work with obviously the Federation, is being able to work with people within the national health system, because people who are on shift work as well, really, really important for them to balance, because one of the things that's most important, for example, is we don't process carbohydrates very well at night. So that's often why people will gain weight if they're eating well on the start of their shift, when the liver should be detoxing the body. So instead of the liver detoxifying, it's digesting. And so it's very, very important, if you do find that you're set into a certain time of day, is trying to balance when you eat with the amount you eat and the type of foods you eat. And I think the most important thing, the practice for me, is the importance, if you are waking at 4 in the morning, is maybe having a look at the liver, but also the lungs. So if you're doing that practice with the lungs, breathing well, getting the energy while you're awake in the lungs to be really good, I think that can help to stop that wakefulness at a certain time of day. And also look at the clock on the other side of the clock, where actually 4 in the morning is we're working with the kidney and the bladder. So actually also making sure she's really doing things that are turning on her parasympathetic and making sure that her sympathetic parasympathetic balance is correct. Just to this is one of the most important things, is we should live on the level of parasympathetic. The Dalai Lama talks about living at the bottom of your ocean, and you're really slow and the body's working well. And occasionally, sympathetic, we go up to the surface. The waves are very strong and we're at the mercy of other things, but then we float down. So our default should be parasympathetic all the time, and turning on the sympathetic when we need to, but then turning it off. And the hypothalamus is the link between your endocrine system and your nervous system. So what that links is how hormones are being produced in the right time during the body clock at a certain time of day. So I would say that, first thing in the morning, especially when you get up, you've got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, is do some strong breathing exercises to really fire up the lungs and get them kicking in at that time of day.
Thank you, Sue. And we've just probably got time just for one more question. So I'll ask this one. Does the body clock cycle vary between women and men?
No, because basically you have, the most important thing is the organs flow and they have their peak and trough at different times of day. Obviously, when you're in different time zones, then it's really important to reset your body clock, do some Qigong, Taiji, maybe if you haven't got time, just for the organ time of day that you've flown into. So you'll help to reset the clock. Ideally, you want to do the whole clock, starting when you arrive and doing the full cycle, because obviously the clock's gone very fast or it's had to go backwards. And how I actually test people, so those of you who are teachers, I'll often test energy, and I'm going to do this at the weekend, where you get people to walk forwards, test their energy, walk backwards, test their energy. When you walk forwards, your energy is naturally stronger, the reaction is quicker than when you walk backwards. But you often find if someone's body clock is out from stress or medication or lots of night work or shift work, when they walk back, their energy is stronger when they go backwards and weaker when they go forwards. And that means that feeling that you're trying to catch up all the time, and you always feel slightly under par.
Thank you very much, Sue. And well, that is time. So as Sue mentioned, she will be teaching at the ITQF weekend course, and myself and admin have put that link in the chat if you're interested. So I'll ask if the final poll can be launched. And with that, I would like to thank everyone who's joined us today. I really hope you enjoyed the talk as well as the informative questions and answers as much as I did. And yes, please answer the poll. We're very keen to hear your thoughts, both positive and negative, about how we can improve. Because, as I say, the International Tai Chi and Qigong Federation is hoping to make this a regular occurrence. So, you know, if you'd like to speak on a topic, or indeed if you'd like to hear somebody talk on a topic, do get in touch, either in the chat or via our email address, which has kindly been posted in the chat already. So, yeah, thank you very much.